Well, it's certainly unprecedented, Dana, and many Republicans and even some Democrats on Capitol Hill think it would set a bad precedent. Now, earlier, Republican Congresswoman Lance Gooden from Texas had this to say about preemptive pardons.
So this just in, President Biden is reportedly considering preemptive pardons before President-elect Trump takes office. Those could include Anthony Fauci, Liz Cheney, and even Adam Schiff. For what? Well, Lucas Tomlinson is live at the White House. Lucas, is this even legal?
The presidential pardon was originally meant to grant the president the power to temper justice with mercy. It was not enshrined in our Constitution so that a dishonorable man could reward his criminal allies, friends, and family for their corrupt practices.
Many months later.
I don't have a problem with Biden pardoning his son. He should have pardoned him. The crazies are coming, right? But to me, it's like pardon more.
Meanwhile,
who was contesting, and one of his most trusted advisors, Sean Hannity, suggested his next move should be pardoning himself and his family to stop the so-called witch hunt. I mean, I don't know that he even has the power to do that. What, does no one read?
Several months later.
He's the president, the sitting president, and he can do whatever he wants to until his time is up.
This administration is very cognizant of the fact that their Justice Department has been weaponized, that they have been in on an act of criminality throughout many stages of this presidency.
Issuing these preemptive pardons to current and former government officials ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration next month. And that includes former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, Senator-elect Adam Schiff, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. Fauci's been accused by Republicans and some watchdog groups of lying to Congress about the origins of COVID and his use of a private email account to do government business.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. And so there is a self-interest at play as well. It's been essentially a den of thieves environment. And so I think the president used this as his way of trying to protect those that have protected him.
Several months later.
You agree with me? I don't have a problem with Biden pardoning his son. He should have pardoned him. The crazies are coming, right? But to me, it's like pardon more people and help more people. Your thoughts?
Right. I don't know if I would trust someone who had the power to pardon their son and didn't and left him to the whims, subject to the whims of somebody like Trump.
Welcome back. The House Select Committee on COVID is levying very serious accusations against public health officials, including a potential cover-up. Their bombshell report also reveals major findings on the virus's origin. So this report's just out, and Chad Pergram has the latest from Capitol Hill. Good morning, Chad.
Dana, good morning. Republicans on the committee argue the origins of COVID were tied to a lab in China, and there may have been cover-ups about pandemic information from those who work on public health. There are questions about a possible criminal probe.
There are some recommendations we might make and have made for criminal referrals, but at the same time, a lot of the information should be looked at further, maybe by Department of Justice, and decide if there are further actions to be taken.
Can you name drop anybody? Would that be Daszak and Warren?
Well, I think that's a good place to start.
Republicans on the panel say Peter Daszak of EcoHealth used taxpayer dollars for gain-of-function research in Wuhan. They claim that David Morens, an advisor to Anthony Fauci, tried to hide pandemic records. But Democrats stand by Fauci.
The person that I felt the sorriest for, or who I felt was trying to do a good job, was Tony Fauci.
Democrats on the committee say Fauci did not suppress the lab leak theory. Fauci says he told the truth.
The second issue is a false accusation that I tried to cover up the possibility that the virus originated from a lab. In fact, the truth is exactly the opposite.
The question is, would they accept a pardon? Because if you don't think you did anything wrong, which they didn't, they might want to not take a pardon. But I will say this, you're talking about an unprecedented crew of people coming in. Listen, even if they don't indict you, they can investigate you into bankruptcy, torture you with FBI investigations. Kash Patel is evidently going to be our next FBI director. Is that what you want to be dealing with for the rest of your life?
Trump during the time he was out of office.
President Trump got actually indicted by a grand jury.
They tried to bankrupt him. They raided his house.
Grant of clemency. I hope that President Biden will also issue preemptive pardons to all of those people threatened by the injustice of what will become the Department of Justice in the Trump administration. That, of course, includes Jack Smith and all of his staff, many Department of Justice lawyers. It includes President Biden himself, although we don't know that anyone can legally pardon themselves. He will need a pardon because he is going to be harassed and charged for no crimes whatsoever. Donald Trump has promised that.
Senator, before you go, I want to ask you, President Trump is reportedly considering issuing a wave of preemptive pardons for family members and allies like Rudy Giuliani, potentially even a self-pardon. Do you think that those pardons are appropriate? Do you think they would be legal?
I don't think they are appropriate at all. This individual, Mr. Trump, has flaunted the law on a continual basis. Unlike, though, Joe Biden, whatever happens on a going forward basis, that ought to be done by
a Justice Department decision. I'm not going to weigh in, or whatever's going to happen in New York will happen or not.
And I shouldn't say easy, but there's a way to do this, I think, that would make the narrative clear-cut for the American people. It's not ideal to have an incoming potential head of the FBI, Kash Patel, who has published enemies lists. But one advantage of that is that he wrote a book, he has an enemies list in it, so we know exactly who he has threatened to go after without cause. Just pardon everyone on it. Pardon everyone on it. Give a speech, say, and this is one reason I wish that the president was
Now, not everyone on that list wants a preemptive pardon. Adam Schiff telling Politico, I would urge the president not to do that. I think it would seem defensive and unnecessary.
I think the fact that they have to have that discussion says everything about Kash Patel and Donald Trump's nominees. There is no reason why any president must consider preemptive pardons, because the incoming administration has made it so clear that they will go after political adversaries, and Kash Patel has been incredibly vocal about that. And I hope that the Senate Republicans, who know Joe Biden very well and know he would not take something like this lightly, really consider the fact that that's even part of this discussion about Kash Patel. He is unqualified. He is unhinged. He has made it very clear that he is out for retribution. He is sending cease and desist letters and lawsuits. This is a dangerous person to head up our top law enforcement agency. And just the fact that this is even part of the conversation says everything that the Senate Republicans should need to hear.
Like, what are you pardoning Anthony Fauci for? What are you pardoning Liz Cheney for, who've not been charged or convicted of crimes?
That goes to the heart of this deliberation, Willie, and why this is so delicate, because the White House counsel and a handful of senior White House aides, including Jeff Zients, the chief of staff, are having this debate right now in the West Wing, which is, do we leave these folks out in the cold and potentially expose them to Kash Patel's FBI and Donald Trump's White House for any number of charges or some kind of, show trial to get a measure of revenge and at the very least make them pay six figures in legal bills to avoid such a case? Or do we offer preemptively pardons to people who there's no proof they've done anything wrong whatsoever and really may not want a pardon in the first place? That's a real tough call, because if you don't do it and Patel and company come after some of these people and you had the chance to give them inoculation legally, that's a hell of a thing to regret. At the same time, do you want to pardon somebody like Liz Cheney or Anthony Fauci and suggest any kind of impropriety that could only add fuel to the Trump aggressors in the first place? It's a real tough nut.
Zeke asked this question, I just didn't hear an answer. The next time that the president says he will or won't do something, why should the American people believe him?
I answered that question. I don't have anything else to add. I answered the question. I answered the question. I can't speak to you understanding the question or not, or my answer or not on this. I don't have anything else to say. I'm not going to relitigate this. I did it on Monday for 30 minutes. I went back and forth. I laid out, I said, please read the president's really comprehensive statement on this. And I even said the last paragraph of that statement, he talks directly to the American people. And that's how I answered that question.
Can you acknowledge that it may have been a mistake by the president, you, to say multiple times unequivocally that he would not pardon his son?
The president laid out in that statement what changed, why his mind changed, how he wrestled with this decision. The president laid that out. I don't have anything else to add.
For that statement, he said in part, I believe in the justice system, but as I wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice. Just to understand that sentence, I think it's important.
Yeah,
Is it sure that the president believes in the justice system, except in some cases?
He believes in the justice system. He believes the facts are. Obviously, I talked about the gun charges, what legal experts have said, former prosecutors have all agreed virtually no one would be criminally prosecuted for underlying factors of Hunter's case. I talked about the gun charges, I talked about the taxes.
Press Secretary, you committed to speaking to the American people, and I quote, in a transparent way, in a truthful way, and an honest way.
Yes.
And then in July, here at this podium, you were asked about the president pardoning his son, and he said, it's a no, it will be a no, it's a no.
Yes, and that is exactly right.
Of the president's son and that pardon, it became a yes. I'm wondering if you would like to explain to us, the American people, really why the information that you provided turned out not to be true.
And I answered this question on Monday. We spent about 30 minutes on this, almost 30 minutes, roughly 30 minutes on this particular issue. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said on Air Force One to your colleagues when I did the gaggle. And look, if you look at his statement, it's pretty comprehensive. The statement that he put out on Sunday when he made this decision to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. It's in his own voice. I think it takes you through his thinking. And he did. He wrestled with this. And again, he said in his statement, in his own voice, that he made that decision this past weekend. And the fact is, when you think about how the president got to this decision, circumstances have changed. They have. And a couple of things, and I said this on Monday as well. Republicans said they weren't going to let up, weren't going to stop. Recently announced Trump appointees for law enforcement have said on the campaign that they were out for retribution, and I think we should believe their words, right? We should believe what they say. The sentencing was coming up, as you all know. There was a sentencing coming up, and the president said this in his statement, that Hunter and his family had been through enough is enough, and he wrestled with these circumstances, these changing circumstances ultimately. And the combination of that, the president changing his mind and issuing, certainly led to the president changing his mind and issuing this pardon. And one thing that I do want to point to, which I think is important, is what Congressman James Clyburn said when he was interviewed. He said, "I am absolutely okay with it. I don't know how many people urge him to do so, but I did." He seemed to be reticent about it. This is what Clyburn said when he spoke to the president 2 weeks ago. But I emphasized, continuing his quote, emphasized the fact that we as fathers have obligations to our children. So that was a conversation that the congressman himself had with the president two weeks ago, said that the president was reticent when he encouraged the president to do so. And this weekend, he thought about it and he weighed, it was not an easy decision to come to, and he put out a comprehensive statement. And I would certainly, offer that up to folks out there who are wondering. I would say, please read the president's response to this in full. What Hunter Biden and what the incoming president has said are very different.
But they're making similar arguments, which is that they've been unfairly prosecuted because of who they are.
I don't think those two things are the same. I just don't. They're not the same. They're just not. And I think the American people understand that. I do think they believe and understand that they're not the same. What the president's son had to go through, and what we've heard from legal experts, former U.S. attorneys general, who look at this case, who understand this case, and have said there would not be this situation. And I think that's important to note as well. And they've been very clear about this. We've heard from many of them, legal experts, former U.S. attorneys from across the country. Again, have all agreed virtually no one would be criminally prosecuted with felony offenses with these facts.
I'm sure my colleagues have a few calls, just very specifically.
It's not only colleagues who watch this, there's also the American people.
Exactly.
So to be fair.
And they were told by you in July that this would not happen, and it did. I'm saying, asking for yourself, not the president saying, but for yourself. Do you feel like you are owed an apology by the president? Do you owe an apology to the American people?
See, I just laid out the president's thinking. The president laid it out himself in his own words. He did. He laid out how he wrestled with this decision. He said in his statement, as a president, as a father, he talked about how difficult it was to make this decision. He thought about it this weekend. He did. He thought about it this weekend. He wrestled with it. And there are some, factors, some real factors that he took into consideration. And that's why I keep saying folks should just take a look. Take a look. Read his statement. And I know what I said. I know what the president said. That is where we were at the time. That is where the president was at the time. I am his spokesperson. This weekend, he thought about it. He wrestled with it. And made this decision. That's what I can tell the American people.
And I think
I think the American people understand, and I think they understand how difficult this decision would be. And I would actually add, and I think it's important to note here as you're asking me these questions, important questions to ask, that there was a poll, a U.S. Gov poll that came out, that some of you all reported on it, and it said 64% of the American people agree with the pardon. 64% of the American people. So we get a sense of where the American people are on this. Obviously, it's one poll, but it gives you a little bit of insight. 64% is nothing to sneeze at.
I actually just looked it up, right? I actually just looked it up, and lo and behold, she lied, right? She lied, okay? She literally got it backwards, okay? She just straight up lied. Karine Jean-Pierre, shredded for wrongly claiming 64% of Americans support pardon, literally got a poll backwards. Only 34% of Americans support President Biden pardoning his son, with 50% opposed, according to YouGov.